Okay, so let's get into this. Spend enough time around most households or therapy offices for that matter, and you will hear a very familiar phrase. Let's talk about how you're feeling. Or, how do you feel about that? Now, to be clear, at times this is exactly right. When something really meaningful happens, a true loss, a real disappointment, certainly taking time to talk helps a child make sense of it. That isn't the concern. The concern is when this talking becomes a pattern rather than a purposeful response. What I am seeing more often is not an occasional, thoughtful conversation, but repeated, often daily discussions centered on emotional struggle. Over time, these conversations actually shape how a child reviews their day and how they interpret their world. In other words, the criteria for something meaningful keeps shifting, so smaller and smaller moments now justify more and more discussion. So here's the thing parents must learn to see, the pattern. It's not about what we say in a single moment. It's our ability to step back and recognize habits across time. You see, the issue isn't a parent's response in the moment. It's the accumulation. It's that same response repeated day after day. And certainly that accumulation creates habits, and those habits are not neutral. They either strengthen growth and independence, or they reinforce struggle and dependence. When you start to look through this lens, believe me, you will notice the patterns. Conversations returning to what went wrong, revisits of the same complaints, and focused attempts to cope rather than move through an experience. Understand, a child's brain actually organizes around what gets repeated. They aren't shaped by one talk. They're shaped by what happens again and again. If a child's day is consistently unpacked through problems like who upset them or what created stress, the brain adapts. It actually becomes more efficient at finding those themes. Their brain is being programmed to filter and focus on struggle, and that brings us to the core issue. Why does this matter so much? Well, attention does more than process. It reinforces. Talking feels helpful, but when frustration becomes the center of discussion, it communicates importance. The message becomes, this deserves focus. Over time, many children become more fluent in describing problems, but ironically, they become less practiced at moving through those experiences independently. So you see, relief comes through the interaction itself, which means the child can begin to associate resolution with external help rather than internal capacity. But here's the reality. Resilience is built when a child experiences difficulty, discovers their fears had no reality, and realizes they can get through it. That requires space, not continuous engagement. So how do we shift the pattern? Well, change begins with awareness. Address real problems briefly, and then purposefully shift attention toward growth and effort. Instead of focusing on struggle, you begin to ask better, pattern-building questions when things are calm. What did you handle better today than before? What went well that you might have missed? What did you figure out on your own? These are much more functional in building resilience. At the end of the day, remember this. Children learn what matters from what is returned to consistently. Change the focus, and you can change the pattern. Now, if these patterns feel deeply ingrained, or if you're seeing anxiety or emotional reactivity that just isn't shifting, believe me, it may reflect how the brain itself has organized over time. At Capital District Neurofeedback, that's exactly what we help with. Retraining those patterns at the brain level to support lasting change. You can learn more at capitaldistrictneurofeedback.com or schedule a free, brief consultation with me, Dr. Randy Cale. I'm certain we can help.